The gavel thunders, a sound like a bone snapping in the silent office. Julian Vance watches the screen where his grandfather's digital ghost delivers a final, cruel ultimatum. Marry a woman of substance in 60 days, or lose the Vance Foundation to his vulture of a cousin, Marcus. 3,000 employees will lose their pensions by Christmas if Julian fails. Cut to a rain-slicked street where Elena Cruz watches a for lease sign being slapped onto the window of her mother's textile shop. Her mother is inside, clutching a ledger of debts she can't pay because a mysterious corporate giant squeezed her supply chain to death. Within 10 minutes of their meeting, a wine stain on a tuxedo leads to a contract in a tinted SUV. $500,000 for 60 days of acting. But as the clock ticks, Elena discovers the man she's dating might be the same man who destroyed her mother's life. Can you love the person who broke you? Stick around, because this isn't a fairy tale, it's a heist of the heart. Before we dive into the fire, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss how this betrayal ends. The mahogany desk felt like a coffin. Julian Vance didn't look at his cousin Marcus, who was already measuring the office for new drapes. 60 days, Julian, Marcus whispered, leaning over the desk. I've already got the liquidators on speed dial. Those factory workers you love so much, they'll be on the street before the first snow. Julian's jaw tightened until it hurt. I'll find a wife, Marcus, and I'll keep the company. A wife? You? You don't even have a pulse. Julian stormed out, the rage a cold stone in his gut. He didn't need love, he needed an asset. That night, the gala was a blur of perfume and fake smiles. Elena Cruz was moving through the crowd with a tray of champagne, her mind miles away. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, another final notice from the bank. Her hand shook. A guest turned sharply, and the red wine surged forward, drenching an Armani lapel. "Watch it!" a voice barked. Julian looked down at the stain, then up at the waitress. He expected tears. He expected a stuttering apology. Instead, Elena squared her shoulders. It's just fermented grapes. Your suit costs more than my mother's rent. If you want to yell at someone, yell at the guy who bumped into me. Julian froze. She was fierce. She was desperate. She was perfect. Follow me, Julian commanded, grabbing her arm. Let go of me or I'll scream, she hissed, pulling back. I'm about to solve every problem you have, Julian said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous rumble. Unless you prefer the bank seizing your mother's shop on Tuesday? Elena's blood ran cold. How do you know about that? I know everything. 10 minutes, my car. In the back of the Maybach, the air was thick with the scent of leather and cold ambition. Julian pushed a folder toward her. 60 days. You play the part of my fiancé. We attend 4 galas, 1 family retreat, and a final hearing. You follow the script. Rule 1, no personal questions. Rule 2, no physical contact unless cameras are present. Rule 3, absolutely no feelings. Elena looked at the figure at the bottom of the page. $500,000. It was enough to pay the debt and give her mother a life of ease. Why me? She asked, her voice trembling. Because you have nothing to lose, Julian said, and because you look like you can lie as well as I can. Elena bit her lip, the image of her mother crying over a calculator flashing in her mind. She grabbed the pen. I hate men like you. Good, Julian replied, not looking at her. Hate is a great motivator. Just make sure the cameras see love. Would you sell your soul to save your family? Type yes or no in the comments right now. Let's see who has the guts to do what Elena did. The first week was a war of attrition. Elena moved into Julian's penthouse, a glass cage that overlooked the city. It was gray, sterile, and lonely. You live like a ghost, Elena said, tossing a vibrant hand-woven throw rug over his designer sofa. "Take that off," Julian snapped, walking into the room. "The interior designer spent months on this palette." "The interior designer has no soul, neither do you." Elena turned up her music, a loud, rhythmic Latin track that echoed off the floor-to-ceiling windows. "If I'm your fiancé, I live here. This is how I live." Julian marched over to the speaker, but Elena stepped in his way. They were inches apart. He could smell the vanilla on her skin. She could see the exhaustion in the dark circles under his eyes. "You're a brat," he growled. "And you're a robot. Why do you care about the company so much? You clearly hate the work." "It's not about the work. It's about the people," Julian shouted, his composure finally cracking. "Marcus will fire them all. I'm the only thing standing between 3,000 families and the abyss, so excuse me if I don't care about your rug." He stormed out, slamming his bedroom door. Elena stood in the silence, her heart hammering. She expected a greedy billionaire. She hadn't expected a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The tension shifted at the founders' ball. Elena was draped in diamonds that felt like shackles. Marcus was there, circling like a shark. "So, Elena," Marcus said, his eyes scanning her cheaply tailored dress that Julian had tried to hide under a designer coat. "Where did Julian find you? A charity case?" Elena felt the heat rise in her neck. She was about to snap when Julian's hand slid firmly around her waist. It wasn't the cold, calculated touch of the contract. It was warm, protective. "I found her where people still have integrity, Marcus," Julian said, his voice smooth as silk. "Something you wouldn't recognize. Now, if you'll excuse us, my fiancé and I would like to dance." On the dance floor, Julian pulled her close. "You're doing well," he whispered against her ear. "You're a good actor," she replied, her breath hitching. "I'm not acting right now," Julian murmured. He pulled back just enough to look at her. The air between them charged, a magnetic pull that defied every rule in the folder. For a second, the gala vanished. There was no inheritance, no debt, only the way his hand felt against the small of her back. But the next morning, the dream shattered. Elena was using Julian's laptop to check her mother's business emails when a file caught her eye. Vance Global, Acquisition Strategy. She clicked it. Her breath caught. There was her mother's company logo. There were the internal memos detailing how Julian's firm had pressured the suppliers to hike prices, systematically suffocating the small business to force a cheap buyout. Julian walked in, holding 2 coffees. He saw the screen. He saw her face. "Elena, I can explain," he said, his voice flat. "Explain what?" she screamed, throwing the laptop onto the table. "That you're the one who ruined us? You didn't find me at that gala, Julian. You targeted me. You broke my mother's heart so you could buy her silence for $500,000. It was a business move before I knew you. It's people's lives, Julian, my mother's life." She shoved him, her eyes burning with tears of pure rage. "You're just like Marcus. You just wear a better suit." "I was going to fix it," Julian yelled back. "I was going to use the inheritance to undo the damage." "With stolen money? No." Elena grabbed her bag. "I'm done. Keep your money. I'd rather be homeless than be your asset." This is the ultimate betrayal. Do you think Julian deserves a second chance, or is he just as bad as his cousin? Drop a comment below. I'm reading every single one. The hearing was held on a Tuesday. The boardroom was filled with lawyers in gray suits. Marcus sat at the head of the table, a victory smirk plastered on his face. "Since Mr. Vance has failed to produce a fiancé and the engagement has clearly dissolved, I move that the assets be transferred immediately." Julian sat at the other end, silent. He looked hollow. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He had the power to lie, to call Elena and beg her to show up for 1 hour, but he couldn't do it, not after seeing the look in her eyes. "He's right," Julian said, standing up. "There is no wedding. The engagement was a contract. I'm not fit to lead this company." The room gasped. Marcus laughed. Finally, some honesty. Sign the papers, Julian. Julian reached for the pen. Just as the nib touched the paper, the double doors swang open. Elena stood there. She wasn't wearing diamonds. She was wearing her work uniform, the simple stained apron from the textile shop. She walked straight to Julian. "I'm not doing this for the money," she said, her voice echoing in the sterile room. "And I'm not doing it for you." She turned to the board. Julian Vance is a man who makes mistakes. He's cold, he's arrogant, and he's lived in a bubble his whole life. But he's the only person in this room who actually cares if those 3,000 families eat tomorrow. Marcus will sell you for parts. Julian will fight for you. She looked at Julian, her expression softening. "And he's going to spend the rest of his life making up for what he did to my mother. Right, Julian?"
Julian was speechless. He looked at the woman who had every reason to hate him, standing there as his shield. "Every single day," Julian whispered. The board deliberated for 10 minutes. The verdict was unanimous. Julian remained CEO. Outside on the sidewalk, the city noise buzzed around them. Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out the check for $500,000. Elena shook her head. "I told you I don't want the blood money." "It's not from the foundation," Julian said. "I sold my car, I sold my watch collection. This is my personal money. It's a loan to your mother's business. No interest, pay it back in 50 years if you want." Elena looked at the check, then at him. "You're still a robot, Julian." "Maybe," he said, a small, genuine smile breaking through his icy exterior. "But I think my software is being rewritten." He stepped closer, ignoring the cameras, ignoring the rules. 60 days are over, Elena. The contract is void." "So what happens now?" she asked, her heart racing. "Now," Julian said, taking her hand, "I'd like to take you on a first date. No scripts, no galas, just us." Elena laughed, a sound of pure relief. "You're buying because I'm technically unemployed." "I'm buying," Julian promised. As they walked down the street, two people from different worlds finally finding a common language, the for lease sign in the textile shop window was being taken down. The inheritance was saved, the business was secure, and for the first time in his life, Julian Vance wasn't looking at an asset, he was looking at his future. If you loved this ending, smash that like button and subscribe for more intense stories. What would you have done if you were Elena? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching till the very end.